on, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to yet another edition of The Drop, where I pretty much break down what new games are coming out this week and on what platforms they're coming out on, so that you guys know what new video games are coming out just in case you might want to pick up something new. And this week we have kind of a unique scenario where a PlayStation Vita exclusive title is actually headlining the entire episode, and alongside of we have the release of a new title that's kind of a spiritual successor to a game that was already pretty successful on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Vita, so we'll talk about that. And then alongside of that we have a few honorable mentions that I wanted to throw in there just in case you guys were interested. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. So, kicking things off, we have the spiritual successor to Dead Nation by the name of Alienation, and it's coming to the PlayStation 4 this week, developed by Housemarque, which is one of the iconic PlayStation developers in my mind. I feel like they always do a pretty good job, and most notably their claim to fame is the iconic launch game for PlayStation 4, Resogun, which I have to say I was pretty impressed with, and if I remember correctly, it was actually the first PlayStation Plus game that you got with the system. So pretty much within Alienation, the aliens have taken over your planet, and this is your last opportunity to kick their asses and take back the world that is rightfully yours, which sounds like a pretty cool storyline, and it's pretty loose so that you don't really have to pay attention to what's going on. This one is definitely all about the gameplay, which to me looks to be pretty good, and it's definitely inspired by Dead Nation. It's got that twin stick kind of control scheme to it, which is personally one of my favorites whenever it comes to an arcade style game, because it allows for enough complexity that you can kind of develop some tactics and your own way to play, but at the same time it's simple enough for the developers to actually make some challenging levels and pretty much throw everything they have at you, and you still stand somewhat of a chance. Now, on top of all of that, there are some new RPG elements that have been added to the game, which are kind of, you know, non-traditional in this kind of game, but it's definitely nice to see a new layer of depth added to a game like Dead Nation that was kind of lacking when it came to depth, but really shine whenever it came to gameplay, and it seems like Alienation is going to combine the best aspects of those two mindsets. Now, it is definitely worth mentioning that the game is pretty online centric and there is no local multiplayer option at this time. Housemarque has said they'll consider bringing the feature to the game if it does well and if the development studio finds a way to do it, but right now there is only online multiplayer, and for a game where co-op is a pretty major part of it, that's a little bit of a downer. But for those that love to play online with their friends, or for those that like to matchmake online, or perhaps even play solo, Alienation still looks like a great time that is inspired by the pretty successful Dead Nation, except with aliens, and that sounds pretty cool to me. Now, next up we have a pretty interesting Vita exclusive title by the name of Severed, in which you take control of a one-armed warrior named Sasha wielding a living sword on her journey through a nightmare world in search of her family, and this is by far one of the most unique games I have seen come to the Vita and in gaming in general in quite a while. Now, the game is a first-person dungeon crawler with RPG elements and touch-based combat, which is not something you normally hear about in the gaming industry, but it does appear to work fairly well. Now, if I understand it correctly, pretty much there are enemies, and then there are somewhat stronger enemies that kind of count as bosses, and whenever you get those bosses' health down to a certain level, you pretty much break off one of their limbs and you add that to your armor or your weapons, and that's pretty much where the RPG element side of the game comes in, which sounds like it could lead to some pretty cool customization. Now, the game has been developed by Drinkbox Studios, the guys that made Guacamelee, and you might be wondering why they didn't just go ahead and continue with the development of Guacamelee 2 and skip over this project entirely, and the key word there is passion. They are passionate about Severed, they are passionate about their PlayStation Vita project, and that is something that is awesome to see. They could have very easily sold out and went ahead and made Guacamelee 2 right off the bat and made tons of money off of that, but they know what they want, they know what they're passionate about, and they wanted to make Severed on the PlayStation Vita, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be a great experience that's hitting your PlayStation Vita this week. So next up we have the Sega 3D Classics Collection coming to the Nintendo 3DS, which includes 7 classic games including Power Drift, Puyo Puyo 2, Fantasy Zone 2W, Sonic the Hedgehog, which is obviously the headliner there, Thunderblade, Galaxy Force 2, and Altered Beast. Now those are some pretty interesting titles and pretty deep into the history of Sega, and then in addition to that you get 2 bonus games. Now this is what really drew my attention. These are games from the Sega Master System that were actually 3D capable back in the early days of 3D technology, and these include Fantasy Zone 2 and Maze Walker. So now the cool thing about those last 2 games is that they are now 3D capable with the Nintendo 3DS, since they were pretty much 3D games from back in the day, and I thought that was pretty cool. But this is a unique kind of collection that I felt was worth mentioning because it goes kind of out of the realm of reason, because you would think that Sega would throw everything they had as far as their popular franchises into one big bundle and sell tons of them on the 3DS, but it seems like they actually went back and saw their classic games and wanted to combine them all in one big game on the 3DS, and that's exactly what they did, and I think that's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and wrap things up with a couple of honorable mentions. First off, we have Tales from the Borderlands getting its physical release this week, and pretty much you get 5 episodes developed by Telltale that follows a spin-off story from the Borderlands universe that features Rise and Fiona. Rise is looking to be the next Handsome Jack, and Fiona is looking to strike it rich, and if you want to experience the entire thing in one big go, you can buy it physically this week. So last but not least, we have King's Quest Chapter 3 Once Upon a Climb coming out this week, and of course, as an episodic franchise, they don't really release many details ahead of time telling you what the chapter is going to be about. However, King's Quest is a pretty incredible reboot that has a great lineup of voice actors, and it's pretty much breathing new life into a classic games franchise from the late 80s. If you haven't heard about it already, I highly recommend you check it out. See if you might be into that kind of thing, especially if you're into Telltale games. You might really like this one from Sierra. So there you guys have it. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, share this video so that more people can find the channel, and be sure to drop me a like down below. And if you are new to the channel, be sure to head over there and subscribe. I upload new stuff like 3 or 4 days a week depending on the week, so there's always something new here on the channel, and I stream live on twitch.tv occasionally, so you can check those links out down below. But as for right now, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for watching this particular video. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.